Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Social media platform X was hit with a massive cyber attack today. Widespread outages have been reported by thousands of users across several countries. Elon Musk says today's attack involved a large, coordinated group and/or a country. A new report finds thousands of inauthentic X accounts with links to the Chinese Communist Party. They're targeting a spiritual group persecuted in China and a New York-based dance company. We'll be speaking with an investigative reporter. The Trump administration is rolling out a new app that allows illegal immigrants to self-deport instead of facing possible detention. And President Trump holds a roundtable with the technology CEO Council. Also, more executive orders are now on the way. Soon, Vice President J.D. Vance will deliver remarks to the National League of Cities. The conference will include over 2,000 government officials from around the nation and is the largest gathering of its kind in Washington, D.C. Ontario retaliates against U.S. tariffs. The Canadian province announces a 25% surcharge on electricity for 1.5 million Americans.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The Trump administration rolled out a new app today. It'll allow illegal immigrants in the U.S. to, quote, self-deport, this rather than facing possible arrest and detention. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection app is known as CBP Home. It will offer an option for someone to signal their intent to depart. The Homeland Security Secretary said the app gives illegal immigrants the option to leave now, quote, so they may still have the opportunity to return legally in the future and live the American dream. CBP Home replaces an app known as CBP One that was launched under the Biden administration. The Biden-era app included a feature that allowed some 1 million migrants in Mexico to schedule an appointment before they request entry at a legal border crossing. Trump shut down CBP One hours after taking office. A Trump administration regulation is set to take effect April 11th. Now, that would require people lacking legal status to register with the federal government or face fines or even jail time. Federal immigration authorities have arrested a pro-Palestinian activist. Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student, played a prominent role in student protests against Israel. The Trump administration has pledged to detain and deport student activists who support terrorist groups. ICE agents took Khalil into custody Saturday night. Khalil's arrest marks the first publicly known deportation effort under Trump's promised crackdown on students who joined last spring's nationwide pro-Palestinian protests. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated on X yesterday that the administration, quote, will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America. Khalil was under investigation by Columbia University, and he's accused of organizing an event where participants glorified Hamas. And just moments ago, President Trump posted on Truth Social that this will not be the last case. President Trump said this is the first arrest of many to come. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it. Trump also said, quote, many are not students, they are paid agitators. Secretary of State Marco Rubio provided an update today on USAID. Rubio wrote on X that the 6-week review process has now concluded and that 83% of its programs will now be canceled. The Secretary of State said the 5,200 contracts canceled spent tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve America's core national interests. Rubio says in some cases they harmed U.S. interests. Now, the remaining approximately 1,000 programs will now be administered under the State Department. Rubio thanked DOJ and hardworking staff for achieving what he called overdue and historic reform. DOJ member Elon Musk commented on Rubio's post, writing, tough but necessary. Good work with you. And President Trump defended Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett when criticism of her was brought up by a reporter.
Look, she's a very good woman. She's very smart. And I don't know about people attacking her. I really don't know.
Barrett was criticized recently in a Supreme Court decision where she sided with justices that rejected the Trump administration's freeze on foreign aid. As a result, the administration could not halt the decision from a lower court to release almost $2 billion in foreign aid. That aid is meant to go towards fulfilling existing foreign aid contracts. Now, Barrett was nominated by Trump during his first term. She has broken with conservative justices several times in the past. And the Trump administration addressed multiple topics yesterday, from the short-term impact of tariffs on the economy to efforts aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. NTD's Daniel Monahan has key takeaways.
President Trump discussed tariffs and their impact in an interview with a Fox News host that aired Sunday. Trump said his tariff plan would likely impact the economy for a transition period, but that it would ultimately benefit the country.
Hey, look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
Trump says a short-term outlook won't cut it. You have to do what's right.
What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future.
The president says something special is brewing in America.
I think the country has got a big light over it right now, and I've been told this by even other foreign leaders.
Trump predicts that because of his policies, interest rates and energy prices will come down, easing the burden on consumers and businesses.
It's going to make our country rich again. We have many companies, as you know, auto companies. They're opening up plants now. We've had 4 or 5 announced already, but many more are coming.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says the threat of tariffs has yielded results with Mexico and Canada. Noem says the drug data on fentanyl is improving, but the U.S. is hoping for even better partnerships, including access to their criminal background system and technology investments. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said Sunday that Trump is likely to maintain his tariff pressure on Mexico, Canada, and China until, quote, fentanyl ends. President Trump Sunday discussed a possible government shutdown if the House can't muster enough votes to pass a temporary funding bill.
It probably won't. I think the CR is going to get passed. We'll see, but it could happen. You never know.
The president says he remains optimistic the measure will get approved. Trump on Saturday signaled his support for the continuing resolution and urged his fellow Republicans to vote in favor of it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio plans to visit Saudi Arabia this week. He will meet with Ukrainian officials for negotiations to end the Russia-Ukraine war.
We're looking at a lot of things. We have big meetings coming up, as you know, in Saudi Arabia. That's going to include Russia. It'll be Ukraine. We'll see if we can get something done. Like to get something done.
Trump said he expects positive outcomes from the talks.
A lot of people died this week, as you know, in Ukraine. Not only Ukrainians, but Russians. So I think everybody wants to see it get done. We're going to make a lot of progress, I believe, this week.
The president also addressed joint military exercises involving Russia, China, and Iran, downplaying concerns.
Because we're stronger than all of them. We have more power than all of them.
With key negotiations ahead, the administration says it aims to secure economic stability and international peace. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Ontario announcing today a 25% surcharge on electricity that it provides to Americans. Canada's most popular province says the price increase is retaliation for President Trump's tariffs. Ontario provides electricity to Minnesota, New York, and Michigan. In total, the move impacts electricity costs for 1.5 million Americans. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he would consider cutting electricity off entirely if the trade dispute escalates. Ford said Ontario's tariff would remain in place despite the 1-month reprieve from Trump. Quebec is also considering similar measures with electricity exports to the U.S. Now, the new surcharge is in addition to Canada's $21 billion worth of retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports. Duties have been applied to products including American orange juice, peanut butter, coffee, motorcycles, and footwear. And staying on Canada, the country has elected a new prime minister. Mark Carney won the Liberal Party race to replace Justin Trudeau. Here's what we know about Canada's incoming leader.
I intend to resign.
Months after Prime Minister Trudeau announced his resignation following low approval ratings, Canada's Liberal Party has finally chosen its next leader. Former central banker Mark Carney won the Liberal Party leadership race Sunday with nearly 86% of the vote.
In first place, the next Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney.
Carney takes over as Liberal Party leader immediately, but must wait for Trudeau to step down before becoming Prime Minister for the remainder of his term. The exact date has not been announced. Carney will lead the Liberal Party into a general election later this year. In his victory speech Sunday in Ottawa, Carney focused on U.S. tariffs.
These are dark days. Dark days brought on by a country we can no longer trust.
Carney called the tariffs imposed by President Trump unjustified, saying he supports Canada's retaliatory measures.
The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
Carney also criticized rival Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre, saying his plan will leave Canada divided and ready to be conquered. Poilievre has previously been compared to Trump, but has recently tried to distance himself from the U.S. president. Carney has positioned himself as a political outsider. He had never run for office before this, having previously worked as governor of the Bank of Canada and then the Bank of England. After that, he served on a number of boards in the private sector and became involved in various net zero emissions initiatives. He began informally advising Trudeau in 2020 during the COVID pandemic and became a formal advisor to the Liberal Party last year. During his campaign, Carney has said he will reduce government spending and debt. He also promised to reduce taxes for the middle class and dismantle international trade barriers. On Sunday, he repeated this promise.
My government will put into action our plan to build a stronger economy, to create new trading relationships with reliable trading partners.
He has also said he plans to expand housing by cutting red tape and funding technology to speed up completion times. He plans to take a strong emphasis on climate policies and said he values inclusiveness, criticizing what he called America's war on woke. When Canada goes to an election, Carney will face tough competition. Conservatives have criticized Carney for supporting carbon tax in the past and for overseeing Brookfield Asset Management when it moved its headquarters from Canada to the U.S. last year. Ahead of Sunday's vote, Poilievre said Carney made Canada weaker and poorer while working for Trudeau. But the prospect of a fresh start for the Liberal Party, combined with Trump's tariffs, has led to a revival of Liberal fortunes. At the start of 2025, the party trailed by 20 or more points. Now it is statistically tied with the Conservatives in several polls. Canada's next federal election must take place by October.
China is imposing new retaliatory tariffs on certain U.S. agricultural goods today. President Trump says his trade policies will make the U.S. richer in the end. Here's the latest on that escalating trade tension.
In trade, as in hockey, Canada will win.
Some American trade partners are cracking down on U.S. exports. Starting today, American farmers face new retaliatory tariffs on many products they send to China. The measures include an extra 15% duty on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and a 10% one on items such as beef and soybeans. Some American farmers say they're worried escalating trade tensions could make it harder to sell their products abroad.
Everything we produce far exceeds what the domestic market could handle.
Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's newly elected successor is standing by Canada's retaliation against the U.S.
And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
President Donald Trump is doubling down. He says some tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods scheduled for April 2nd, quote, could go up. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says duties on steel and aluminum imports are set to start Wednesday. Most mainstream economists say tariffs can be inflationary. Lutnick acknowledges some prices might rise in the U.S., but Trump says any pain would be short term.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America.
When we come back, a new report finds thousands of inauthentic X accounts with links to the Chinese Communist Party. They're targeting a spiritual group persecuted in China and a New York-based dance company. We'll be speaking with an investigative reporter. Stay with us.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretane Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretane Black Ginseng. Order now at puretane.com.
Thanks for staying with us. Social media platform X has removed thousands of accounts linked to the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP for short. Now, those accounts were found to be amplifying New York Times articles targeting Shen Yun Performing Arts, a company that was founded by members of the spiritual practice Falun Gong. One Chinese language article from the site about Shen Yun was shared over 28,000 times, but it was found that 80% of those accounts that reposted the article have no followers, which is often a sign of inauthentic activity. Experts now highlight the growth of the CCP's online influence operations, including the use of AI to create fake accounts and to amplify anti-Falun Gong propaganda. Now, joining us now live in studio to talk about this is Joshua Phillips, senior investigative reporter with the Epoch Times and host of Crossroads on Epoch TV. Josh, thank you for joining us.
Hey, real pleasure.
Now, I want to start with those numbers right there, right? 28,000 reposts for one Chinese language article, but then 80% of those accounts without followers.
Well, you know, that was what raised the flag for the Epoch Times in the first place. Of course, Epoch Times launched an investigation into it, and we're like, you know, something doesn't line up here. We were looking, of course, at the different accounts that were promoting these, you know, what are obviously Falun Gong hit pieces from the New York Times, which fully aligns with CCP propaganda. And so it's interesting, suddenly what looked like CCP propaganda accounts are what are spreading it. Sure enough, we look into it. Of course, Epoch Times did the investigation. My colleague Peter Svab, he did the article on it. Epoch Times looks into it, and sure enough, it looks like the accounts are fake. They report it to Twitter, or X as it's called now, and X confirms it. X ends up deleting massive amounts, just thousands upon thousands of them. And so we can say, you know, affirmatively now, fake CCP-tied accounts, it looks like CCP-tied, fake accounts were promoting the New York Times and doing anti-Falun Gong hit pieces.
And what a headline that is.
Yeah.
But my question here is, why specifically target Falun Gong or Shen Yun Performing Arts, which is a company founded by Falun Gong practitioners?
Yeah, well, why persecute a religion that talks about truthfulness and kindness? You know, you're dealing with communism, that's why. You know, the Chinese Communist Party is set out to persecute a group basically for no reason. And in order to justify a persecution that had no reason, what the CCP had to do is they had to make stuff up. They had to fabricate reasons. And so what the CCP has been doing for the past, since 1999, is fabricating incidents, fabricating news, fabricating, fake hit pieces, and trying to spread these globally. Now, you'd think that a decent news outlet would actually look into the validity of the allegations or lack thereof. There have been some that have done a great job exposing it. In the UK, for example, they had a tribunal, government tribunal. They actually investigated the persecution of Falun Gong. They found that the Chinese Communist Party is in fact harvesting the organs from living Falun Gong practitioners, massive persecution. They even determined in this tribunal that even groups outside of the CCP, investors, businesses, everything tied in with this, that they could face criminal charges one day. The New York Times is silent on it. Not only that, during that tribunal, a former journalist with New York Times came out and she said New York Times canceled an article she had investigating this. And so it raises some real questions. Well, why is the New York Times seemingly not only covering this up, canceling pieces that would have exposed things that are confirmed to be true regarding the persecution, but are instead even working, it seems, with CCP, hit pieces and fake news and fake bots promoting the CCP's propaganda, targeting a group right here in the U.S.
And I think that raises another concern that is so important to Western democracy, which is journalistic integrity.
Yeah, what a concept, right? Well, I've said this repeatedly, actually. The free societies, you need to have an informed public to have a free society. Because what is the basis of a free society? It's you and I going to the polls and casting our votes. What is the decision based upon when we go and cast our votes? Well, it's public information. And so if you want to change a country, you change the information. This is why you have groups like the CCP trying to control information. This is why you have groups trying to censor everything they don't like. This is why you have massive information campaigns like we're watching right now. Tied in with this whole New York Times hit piece thing, we're finding out the CCP has a campaign on this. They have under their military, officially adopted in their military code, called the 3 warfares. Psychological warfare, which is the war for narrative, media warfare, which is the control of outlets of information, and legal warfare, the triggering of legal investigations and cases, which they can do either by fabricating charges or fabricating information to instigate that, or by having people they've paid off instigate it for them. And the CCP is doing this right now, targeting Shen Yun, targeting Falun Gong, and because they're the CCP, targeting just about everybody else who's critical of the Chinese Communist Party right now, which is, in my opinion, deeply stupid. But this is the CCP we're talking about.
Josh, building off of that, those points you mentioned there, they come from an Epoch Times report that Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese regime, launched this tactic, this strategy to persecute really Falun Gong overseas, to extend past international borders, and it was implemented back in 2022. And I think the fact that they're using Western media, social media, all of these tactics, it's not just an attack on one religious group or on one American company, but it's really an attack on Western values.
Well, it's even more than that. What the Chinese Communist Party is doing right now is it's mobilizing all the systems that it normally keeps hidden. Now, from one perspective, you could say, geez, it's horrible they're attacking Shen Yun and Falun Gong and innocent religious believers in the United States. It's terrible, and frankly, I hope the U.S. government wakes up to that and does something about it, which I think they are. They are charging some Chinese spies. In fact, they've even charged several tied in with these attacks, including against Shen Yun, including recently against Epoch Times. They just indicted 12 Chinese hackers who were targeting the Epoch Times. But on the other side, you could say it's a great opportunity for the U.S. because as the CCP is basically exposing all of its cards right now, they can take action to go after these systems. So I think it's a big opportunity if they choose to do it. But if they don't do it, who's to say the CCP won't just use this to target someone else? They're demonstrating a capability right now to export persecution, right? Transnational repression. And they tried doing this before. In fact, my career as a journalist started last time they tried doing it. Well, maybe not last time, but one of the previous times, because there have been many. Back in 2008, we found out the CCP was launching a program where they were trying to export basically just physical violence. They were using Chinese mafia, they were using front organizations, they call them tongs, and they were making them physically beat up Chinese dissidents. For example, this was ahead of the Beijing Olympics 2008 at this time. They were beating up, for example, Falun Gong practitioners on the streets of New York. We have video of it. They were doing this in France. They were doing it in, basically across the US. They were doing it in San Francisco. They were also having Chinese police dress up like Tibetan Buddhist monks, and then they were trying to frame them using the same things. They had Chinese student groups going out launching protests. They were mobilizing things just like this, only at that time they were doing it through physical violence. This time they're doing it through information.
And it seems that they're getting more brazen about it. It seems that it's escalating, would you say?
It is. And on your point too, actually, it's not even just the Epoch Times saying that Xi Jinping launched his campaign. That was recently confirmed by The Diplomat. They did a follow-up article. They corroborated the claims of the Epoch Times. Xi Jinping has, in fact, basically initiated a new transnational repression right now, targeting Falun Gong in the United States and around the world.
Absolutely shocking. What else has this latest report from Epoch Times uncovered that you found to be particularly hard to believe?
I don't find anything hard to believe, but to me, this is the tip of the iceberg still. I think that what we're finding right now is a small piece of the greater picture because, myself as a journalist, I've been studying this stuff for almost 20 years now. Like, this has been my career. And I know based on my investigations, look, we hear about Chinese secret police stations. We hear about, Chinese hacker arrested, or this individual was stealing information for China. Kash Patel, FBI, they just arrested 3 guys, two active military in the US Army, one former, who were stealing information on the US military, giving it to China. They're facing treason charges right now. So you hear about some cases like this, 1 guy arrested, 2 guys arrested, and so on. I've heard estimates that the number of Chinese spies the CCP has in the United States is closer to 1 million.
Unbelievable.
So what they're doing is fantastic. It needs to become a much bigger focus. In my opinion, this actually represents the greatest threat to the United States. It is the active measures of the Chinese Communist Party working very hard within the United States to destroy this country. And you could say, well, this is just a religious group maybe Americans have never heard about or don't know much about, fighting with the CCP. No, that's not the case. They're the ones they're going after right now. And if they're allowed to, win, basically, if they're allowed to do it, someone else is going to be next. And the CCP has already demonstrated, alongside Falun Gong, they're even attacking, even threatening US elected officials right now. If there are members of Congress who are defending Falun Gong or defending Shen Yun, the CCP is threatening them. How are these people not going to jail for that? How can you threaten an elected official working for a foreign government and nobody does anything about it? This is where we're at.
And, I think more and more Americans are starting to realize this, but it still seems that this issue is not really at the forefront where it should be.
Well, you know what it is? It's the big lie concept. There's something the Nazis did, right? People can, if you tell them a little lie, they can be like, okay, you're lying. If you tell them a big lie, a very, very big lie, it sounds too far out. And so if you do something in a really extreme way, people just be like, oh, come on, that's not happening. When you act in a way that is extremely brazen, if you do something like what the CCP is doing right now, if I say there's 1 million Chinese spies in America, people might be like, I don't know, I could believe there's like 100 or something like that. When you talk about this type of scale or this type of operation, it starts to get into the area where people think, again, it's too big of a lie, right? It's too big of an issue. I would point out, though, that I think 2019 COVID was a wake-up call for a lot of people. I do think most of the world, not even just average people, most of the world woke up to the nature of the Chinese Communist Party. And even, for example, I've been talking about Chinese front operations and spy groups for years. When people started hearing about these secret Chinese police stations, look, I've been talking about those since 2008. You know what I mean? I've been talking about that since 2008. They called them something else, right? You call them tongs or, front organizations. As soon as you say secret Chinese police station, boom, people woke up. And I think people now are aware this is happening. They are becoming aware of the nature of the CCP. And I do believe that the pushback against the CCP is very strong right now, which I think is why the CCP is doing this. I believe the actions of the Chinese Communist Party right now are not an act of strength. It's an act suggesting that they're afraid right now. Because why would they do something so utterly brazen that risks effectively exposing everything they have tried to keep hidden until now?
It's almost like when you back someone into a corner and they have nowhere left to go and they have nothing left to lose, so they just throw it all out there.
Which is what we're being told is happening with Xi Jinping. You mentioned the 2022 order he had, where he's directing people to go and attack Falun Gong and Epoch Times and Shen Yun and so on, and NTD, not leaving you all out. The reason he's doing this, based on what we're told, based on what's been corroborated by other media, the reason Xi Jinping is doing this is because he's worried that if voices, very loud voices in the United States, expose the nature of the CCP, expose what the CCP is doing, which I make a career out of doing, you know what I mean? Which we do, we expose them. They are worried that Donald Trump and the Republicans, if they become aware of the nature of the Chinese Communist Party, that through tariffs, through sanctions, maybe through even just trade war, that the CCP could be destroyed. And so this is really the CCP fighting for its survival right now, because it believes the Trump administration could potentially bring an end to the Chinese Communist Party.
And do you think the Trump administration is aware and prepared for this?
Let's put it this way. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he was sanctioned by the CCP. The CCP sanctioned Marco Rubio, and then he becomes Secretary of State, and the Chinese diplomats, they tell him, hey, come and meet with us. We promise we won't arrest you. Yeah, it sounds like a good promise. Way to do diplomacy, China.
I know. What I mean? Oh my gosh. Well, let's come back to Americans, everyday Americans, right? At the end, it's all great and fine to talk about what's going on, this big plan here, this big lie. But at the end of the day, when Americans are on social media every day and consuming these posts and reposting, resharing, what can they do to inform themselves and to make sure that they're not inadvertently becoming part of this big machine by reposting these articles or these posts?
Well, that's the nature of how the CCP does this. The slogan for the CCP for this is strangle you with your own systems. And I'll give you one example of this. America has protections on free speech. We have protections on the freedom of the press. We value these things. The CCP on its side says, well, strangle you with your own systems. You believe in free speech? We will use the free speech platforms of your country to destroy you. You believe in freedom of the press? We will manipulate your press in order to post things that benefit them. And look at what the press is doing. Look at what our free speech platforms are being used for. We've heard reports the CCP is even paying online influencers money to post these hit pieces. There have been some allegations, for example, that people with over 50,000 followers are getting paid $300 by the CCP to run anti-Falun Gong content. Tim Pool, big influencer, he came out and exposed it. He said publicly the Chinese Communist Party, or what he thinks are CCP agents, tried paying him to run this propaganda. There have been articles exposing this, even prior to this, actually. A lot of mainstream media have been talking about it, that you have these travel vloggers doing, pro-CCP travel content.
And I've seen that on my own feed.
Well, if you're on Instagram or TikTok, whatever, you've probably seen it. The CCP is paying for it. And so I think people need to realize that just because you see something doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean it's not real. Or say it doesn't mean it's real. And you have organizations actively trying to deceive you. There are people actively trying to deceive you using what is transnational propaganda.
And this is where critical thinking really comes in handy.
Yeah. What a concept, right?
I know.
Thinking for yourself.
Well, Josh, before we go here, since we're on the topic of X, I think anyone who's been using X this morning would have realized or noticed that the app was down for a little bit, all right? Your feed was not refreshing. Musk on X, he actually posted a response to this. He said, quote, "There was and still is a massive cyber attack against X. We get attacked every day, but this was done with a lot of resources. Either a large coordinated group and or a country is involved." Okay, so we're still very early into this investigation. Musk hasn't come out with much new information yet. But just from a preliminary view here, what do you make of this?
So as a journalist, I covered cybersecurity for several years. Process of elimination. There are 4 possibilities. One is US-based organization or Europe. That would be stupid because it's very easy to track. This would be what you call a DDoS attack, distributed denial of service attack, where you basically overload the servers. It's really easy to track, really easy to go after people, really easy to arrest people. If it were US-based or elsewhere, they'd probably shut it down by now, and they'd probably arrest them. The other countries that would have these capabilities, North Korea, they don't get involved with stuff like this normally. Probably not them. Russia, it would be stupid right now because they're trying to make a deal with Trump. And Trump's honestly probably doing them more of a favor than Zelensky right now. Or the CCP. And I would say it's probably the CCP because they're the only ones with the capabilities and I'd say the interest right now to do this. Maybe they said, hey, Epoch Times got all of our fake X accounts pulled down. So in retaliation, they're going to pull down X. Maybe that's why they're doing it.
Well, we're going to see what comes out of this investigation. Joshua, Philip, keep up the good work. Thanks for coming on today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on now. Vice President J.D. Vance is delivering remarks to the National League of Cities. Let's tune into that.
Or even if you don't ever want to own a home, the knowledge that if you work hard and spend wisely, eventually you'll be able to afford a nice place to live, that goes, I think, a very long way to giving people a sense that they belong here and a sense that they have a stake in the future. Now, there are some important reasons why that belief is dwindling among Americans today. And a lot of it, of course, comes from the historic inflation that this country has dealt with over the last 4 years. Now, under the previous administration, to get a little bit political, the cost of a median price home in America more than doubled, and that was just in 4 years. And if your salary didn't keep pace with inflation and rise 20%, your buying power took even a bigger hit. And of course, if you think about this, if the price of a home doubles and the price and your actual salary doesn't double, then you're a lot worse off. And we know that most Americans did not see their salary double over the last 4 years. So it's no surprise that home sales hit a 30-year low in 2024. Now, another reason for the elevating costs comes down to zoning. And the reality, as you all know, is that zoning is an area where federal authority is actually quite limited. And I'm sure none of you want the federal government in the business of mandating how cities and towns handle local laws, and that's certainly not what we want to do either. But I would ask everyone in this room is to be good partners with us, and certainly partners with your citizens, and think about how we can improve the costs of the costs of housing for our citizens. And I think one of the ways that we're going to have to do that is by being a little bit smarter about our local zoning rules. And in particular, when I think about zoning, I can't help but think about it without, of course, the communities that I know best, which are those that I represented in the state of Ohio. And Columbus, Ohio in particular, I assume we've got some Columbus people here. And Columbus is a boomtown in so many ways. I've got relatives and family members who live there, who love Columbus. It's a magnet because it's had so much economic development. But one of the things that I worry about when I look at a city like Columbus or Miami, which became a boomtown during the COVID years, is the unaffordability of housing. And we've got to fix that. If we actually want these places to be magnets, not just for jobs and investment, but also the dreams of our young people, we've got to actually make it easier to build homes. And in particular, I think the city of Austin has done a pretty interesting job. Because in Austin, you saw this massive increase of people moving in. The cost of housing skyrocketed, but then Austin implemented some pretty smart policies, and that brought down the cost of housing. And it's one of the few major American cities where you see the cost of housing leveling off or even coming down. Now, the Trump administration has taken important steps to make building cheaper and to boost the supply of housing. Now, of course, it's going to take time, but this is a day one issue for our entire team from the president on down. On his first day in office, the president issued an executive order making it a priority to bring down prices for new buyers. Now, part of that will come from slashing needless regulations, which, according to some estimates, account for about 25% of a new single-family build today. We've also seen Secretary Turner, our great Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, he's working hard on this issue, cutting some of the Biden rules at HUD that hike costs and shifted decision-making from local governments to Washington, D.C. And Secretaries Burgum and Wright, and certainly Administrator Zeldin at the EPA, are putting in important work to bring down the cost of energy, which is, of course, a critical input to the cost of building a home, to say nothing, of course, of heating one and keeping its lights on. But I actually want to focus on something a little bit different, because I think this is one of the areas where what the Trump administration can do and has done is going to be one of the major drivers of bringing down the cost of housing. Now, local zoning, regulations, the cost of energy, these things are about the supply of housing. How do we get more houses out there to be built? But I think it's important to talk about the demand side of the housing market. And so much of what we're doing in the Trump administration when it comes to the immigration issue is framed about law enforcement, about reducing fentanyl coming into our communities. And that is true. That is a big part of why we're doing what we're doing at the border. But when we talk about housing and why costs are so high, we don't talk enough about demand. And one of the drivers of increased housing demand, we know, is that we've got a lot of people over the last 4 years who have come into the country illegally. And that's something we have to work on if we want to meaningfully reduce the cost of housing too. Now just think about this. If you allow 20 million people to compete with American citizens for the cost of homes, you are going to have a large and frankly completely preventable spike in the demand for housing. And that is what we, of course, have seen, because while we made it a little bit hard to build homes in this country over the last 4 years, we've also, unfortunately, made it way too easy for people to compete against American citizens for the precious homes that are in our country to begin with. Now, I'll say this, it's actually not just an American problem either. If you go to Canada, where because of their laws and regulations, they've seen a massive increase in the number of people who have come into their country. You go to the United Kingdom, you go across the world, and you see a very consistent relationship between a massive increase in immigration and a massive increase in housing prices. And we have to be honest about that. Well, I see one of our nice representatives out here wants to actually, I guess, continue to flood the country with illegal immigrants, making your communities and citizens unaffordable. But ma'am, with all respect, one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing is because we want to make it more affordable for Americans to live. That is one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. Now, last week, I visited the southern border, and we decided to check in on what's going on there at the southern border. And of course, like I said earlier, you often hear about immigration enforcement as about crime and about drug trafficking, and that is a big part of it. I was at Eagle Pass, and I was talking to local border control down there, and they told me that in just a matter of weeks, their small part of the border had gone from 1,500 daily encounters to less than 30. And again, that's in a matter of weeks. That's just a simple matter of common sense border enforcement. That matters. Thank you. And let's talk about why it matters. I mentioned housing. But one of the things I heard down there, I was talking to the mayor in that community, and he said it's incredibly stressful on local resources. It's stressful on their local hospitals. It's stressful on their local schools to have this massive increase. And so while, look, I recognize there's a diversity of opinions here, clearly there is, I also think it's important to be honest about those disagreements, to acknowledge those disagreements, but to say that the reason why we care about border security is because we want your communities to be safer, we want them to be more affordable, we want there to be less drugs in our country, and we want your citizens to be able to live the American dream. It is the birthright of every single one of our citizens, and we're going to fight for it every single day. So, with all due respect for some of the disagreements in opinion, I'd say we welcome disagreements. We want to talk about those disagreements, but we also have to respect the law in the United States of America. And I can tell. And I can tell you that, yes, of course, you're going to disagree with some of our policies. That's okay. Come and tell us when you disagree with our policies, and we'll have a conversation about it. Maybe don't shout it in front of 2,000 people. I can't even hear what you're saying, sir. But importantly, on this question of immigration, we have to recognize that, yes, you can disagree with some of the laws that are in place. You can disagree with the enforcement of those laws. You can even vote for people who want to change those laws. But while we have immigration laws on the books, we will enforce them, and we expect our local municipalities to help us. So it will be the policy of the Trump administration to enforce the nation's laws, and it will be the policy of the Trump administration to say that it is not up to local cities to choose which federal laws that they're going to enforce. It's important. We can't do immigration enforcement with sanctuary cities. We've got to have everybody respecting the law, and that is going to be one of the major policy focuses, of course, of the Trump administration, and it already has been. And I want to just say one final point about this issue of housing and of the strains that immigration and illegal immigration in particular put on our housing stock. We know from economists that blue-collar folks are often those who face the biggest cuts in wages and in services when you have communities overwhelmed by illegal immigration. I come from a blue-collar family. And I think one of the main drivers is that we need to be able to give our citizens, black, white, or whatever skin color, whatever belief system that they have, if you are an American citizen, you deserve to have a government at the local, city, and federal level that fights for the American dream for you. And we've seen yes, over the Biden administration, but let's be honest, over 40 years of American policy, we've seen a lot of our blue-collar Americans, urban and rural, struggling to afford a home, struggling to raise their kids in safe communities, struggling to look to the future with hope and optimism. And so, with all respect for policy disagreements, I think that one thing that unites us in this room is that we want to give our blue-collar people in the United States of America a shot at the American dream again. We may disagree about how exactly to do it, but let's do it together. Let's fight for our people together, and let's reinvigorate the American dream for the American citizen once again. And let me close here with just an acknowledgement here that I know you guys have some of the hardest jobs in government, Democrat, Republican, or nonpartisan. You guys are the ones, of course, who fix the potholes. You guys are the ones that make sure our local police have the funding that they need, our local firefighters are able to do the incredible job that they do. So I just want to let you know, from the Trump administration, from the president, the vice president, and everybody else, we respect what you do. We're impressed by you. We think you guys are doing a great job, and we want to make sure that you have a presidential administration that is making your lives easier and not harder. So please, consider our administration one with an open door. Please come to us when you have issues. Even if you don't like what we're doing on the policy, you guys have got to be able to come and talk to us. So keep doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy the rest of your time in Washington. God bless you guys, and thank you for doing the great job.
A live look there at Vice President J.D. Vance speaking to the National League of Cities. A lot of talk about affordable housing and opportunities for Americans. All right, coming up next, after this break, there are new details in the Menendez brothers case. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Huckman weighs in why he supports resentencing but remains opposed to a new trial. We'll be right back.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowners insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by US News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free.
From all of us here at MyPillow,
thanks, America! Welcome back to Newsroom. Police in Florida have arrested a teenager who was allegedly planning a school shooting. Authorities say officers apprehended the teen after being tipped off to a video showing the teen with what appeared to be several firearms. Sanford police identified the suspect as Timothy A. Thomas, a student currently enrolled in Elevation High School. Thomas was located at his residence and taken into custody without incident. Police seized several airsoft replica guns that they called extremely realistic. The 17-year-old has been charged with intimidation and threatening to conduct a mass shooting or terrorism. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman gave an update this morning on the high-profile Menendez brothers murder case. The update covered 3 elements: the habeas petition filed by the Menendez brothers, their clemency plea to the California governor, and their resentencing request.
One of the key hallmarks of resentencing is, do the defendants pose an unreasonable risk of danger to the community? One way to decide if they pose that risk is to understand if they have been rehabilitated. And one way to understand if they've been rehabilitated is, have they accepted and exhibited full insight into the crimes that they have committed and accepted complete responsibility for their criminal actions.
Hochman has already asked the courts to deny the brothers' habeas petition, but Governor Gavin Newsom has directed the California Board of Parole hearings to review whether they pose a risk to public safety if released. Hochman opposes a new trial but supports a resentencing hearing as long as it's on his terms. He's requesting that a resentencing motion filed by the previous district attorney, George Gaskin, be withdrawn before the case moves forward. The Menendez brothers, serving life sentences for their convictions in the 1989 murders of their parents, will have a resentencing hearing on March 20th and 21st. President Zelensky travels to Saudi Arabia today to meet Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. This visit comes ahead of talks between Ukrainian and U.S. officials on ending the war with Russia. Tuesday's talks between U.S. and Ukrainian officials are the first official meeting since a contentious Oval Office encounter between Zelensky and President Trump. They're expected to focus on a bilateral minerals deal and ending the war. Zelensky has said he will not attend Tuesday's talks. Now, the Ukrainian delegation will include his chief of staff, his foreign and defense ministers, and a top military official in the presidential administration. Meanwhile, on the U.S. side, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will attend the negotiations, with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff expected to join him. A major rescue operation today off the eastern coast of England. A U.S.-owned oil tanker and a Portuguese cargo ship collided, setting both vessels on fire. The cargo ship was carrying containers of cyanide. U.S. officials have confirmed the oil tanker was carrying cargo for the U.S. Department of Defense, thought to be jet fuel. 36 people were rescued. An official with the port of Grimsby East said 13 casualties were brought in on a high-speed vessel. A harbor pilot boat carried another 19 people to shore. Britain's maritime and Coast Guard agencies said a rescue helicopter was deployed to the scene in the North Sea. A Coast Guard plane and firefighting vessels were sent to the area as well. Moving on now, an Italian pooch is top dog. The 4-year-old canine was the first Italian competitor to be crowned Best in Show at Crufts in the British city of Birmingham over the weekend. The dog's handler had this to say.
It means everything to me. I am a young handler and breeder, so it's truly a dream come true. And it's absolutely amazing what just happened. And I'm feeling super happy and overwhelmed.
Miuccia took the title on the last day of the annual dog show, winning the hound category earlier in the competition. Crufts was established in 1891 and is one of the largest dog shows in the entire world. This year's event was held at Birmingham's National Exhibition Center. Crufts 2024 drew 24,000 dogs and over 155,000 visitors. According to the competition, 8.7 million viewers tuned in across the world as well. Coming up, Mayor Adams announces removal of over 1,000 illegal firearms from New York City streets since the beginning of 2025. The city reporting the number of shootings in January and February are at a record low. Stay with us. We'll be right back in the next hour.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and you know, there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel. Exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Elon Musk says social media platform X was hit with a massive cyber attack and that it was done with a lot of resources. He says it indicates a country or coordinated group or both were behind it. Federal immigration authorities have arrested a pro-Palestinian activist and revoked his green card. President Trump responds on Truth Social. The vast majority of USAID programs are on the chopping block. Secretary of State Rubio gives an update after a 6-week review process. Mayor Eric Adams announces removal of over 1,000 illegal firearms from New York City streets since the beginning of 2025. The city reporting the number of shootings in January and February are at a record low. There are new details in the Menendez brothers case. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman weighs in why he supports resentencing but remains opposed to a new trial. Ontario retaliates against U.S. tariffs. The Canadian province announces a 25% surcharge on electricity for 1.5 million Americans.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Elon Musk has reported what he called a massive cyber attack on his platform X. He said there have been outages across the platform today and users were unable to log in. In a post on the platform, Musk wrote, quote, "We get attacked every day, but this was done with a lot of resources." He also suggested that, quote, "a large coordinated group and or a country is involved." He said they were tracing to find the source of the attack. Federal immigration authorities have arrested a pro-Palestinian activist. Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student, played a prominent role in student protests against Israel. The Trump administration has pledged to detain and deport student activists who support terrorist groups. ICE agents took Khalil into custody Saturday night. Khalil's arrest marks the first publicly known deportation effort under Trump's promised crackdown on students who joined last spring's nationwide pro-Palestinian protests. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated on X yesterday that the administration, quote, "will be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America." Now, Khalil was under investigation by Columbia University. He's accused of organizing an event where participants glorified Hamas. Moments ago, President Trump posted on Truth Social that this will not be the last case. Trump said this is the first arrest of many to come. "We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it." Trump also said, quote, "Many are not students, they are paid agitators." Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio provided an update today on USAID. Rubio wrote on X that the 6-week review process has now concluded and that 83% of its programs will now be canceled. The Secretary of State said the 5,200 contracts canceled spent tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve America's core national interests. Rubio says in some cases they even harmed U.S. interests. The remaining approximately 1,000 programs will now be administered under the State Department. Rubio thanked DOJ and hardworking staff for achieving what he called overdue and historic reform. DOJ member Elon Musk commented on Rubio's post, writing, "Tough but necessary. Good working with you." And joining us now to discuss the legal implications of that arrested student at Columbia is Gerard Filitti, senior counsel with the Lawfare Project and an attorney specializing in national security law and policy and counterterrorism. Gerard, always great to have you on. Let's talk about that, right? Trump just replied and responded to that arrest, saying that pro-Palestinian Columbia University student is just the first of many arrests to come. How big do you think this is going to get?
I think this is very big, and it's about time that there was some concerted action on the part of the federal government to address what has been happening on college campuses. And really, it's important to frame this. It's not about pro-Palestinian activism. It's not about peaceful protest. This is about pro-Hamas sympathies, pro-terrorist movements that are taking over school buildings, that are withholding the ability of other students to get an education and to enjoy their basic rights. That's actually infringing on the civil rights of the Jewish students on campus and faculty as well. So to have this high level attention, to have the President of the United States supporting a policy where these agitators are receiving consequences for their actions, this is very key to driving change.
Gerard, talk to us more about this. Critics are very worried that this type of arrest will infringe on students' right to protest and their freedom of speech. But I mean, at what point is the line drawn where it goes from freedom of speech to shouting fire in a theater?
It's not even about speech or conduct. It's about that type of conduct. You're absolutely right, like shouting fire, like inciting, causing that kind of harm. But it's also about the conduct. This is not an issue of free speech. This person is not being detained or being deported for something that he said, but rather it's what he has been doing, which is a campaign to harass, to intimidate, to discriminate against Jewish students. He's been instrumental as a spokesperson and working with the groups on college campuses that occupied a building illegally, that had that encampment illegally, that were disturbing the rights of students. It's not about speech. You're still entitled to say what you will, but when you act on that speech, when you prevent other students from enjoying their legal rights, then that's conduct, and that conduct is something that is subject to punishment. That's the case here. It's not the speech, it's the conduct. As the image on your screen shows right now, the viewers are watching, people barricading buildings, people blocking doors, people doing everything possible in a building takeover. That's not speech. Free speech doesn't give you the right to do that. That's conduct. That's illegal conduct and conduct that's being punished.
Now, Gerard, Khalil's attorney said that ICE actually threatened to arrest his wife, who is an American citizen, and she's also 8 months pregnant. This is also raising some major legal concerns here. I mean, if what this attorney said here is true, what would be the legal grounds here?
No, first we have to take a lot of what they say with a grain of salt. But the legal grounds, I could easily think, and I have no knowledge about this, but I could easily see a conspiracy charge being leveled. I think conspiracy is to commit a crime, conspiracy to cover up a crime. There could very well have been fraud in getting Khalil to become a U.S. citizen from his status as a student and receiving a green card. That might include fraud on the part of his wife. We're only speculating, but there is plenty that could be charged.
Well, then could there be more to this case yet that we don't know about yet? Is there perhaps evidence from authorities of terrorist connections?
There may well be, and that's something that is disqualifying to citizenship. Being a member or supporting a foreign terrorist organization is something that disqualifies you from being in this country, and working with a terrorist organization certainly precludes you from becoming a citizen. I don't think that this arrest was made lightly. I think this was very strategic, and the government has good information about who this person is involved with leading up to the arrest. So I think that we will have a lot more developments down the line.
So what do we know so far about how the administration is going to go about determining who exactly to arrest? I mean, this happened a year ago. Do they have records? Are they reviewing footage? What's happening right now?
From what we understand, there are two different types of reviews being done right now. One of them is using computers, AI technology, to go through the records of individuals that were arrested or otherwise detained in connection with protests and agitations at Columbia and at other colleges. But there are also reports that the community is putting out, people whose identity are known to members of the community as being involved in violent acts, as being involved in illegal conduct. They are certainly reaching out to organizations, including my own, to reach out to the Justice Department and provide information about these individuals.
And just going back to an earlier point, Gerard, when speaking about deporting these international students, a lot of the talk has been around these student visas. But then today we saw Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He said they'll be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America. Explain the legality here. First it was student visas, and now it's green cards.
Well, I will add one more to that. You can actually remove the citizenship of someone who was naturalized if they have engaged in fraud or illegal conduct. So it's not just about visas, it's not just about green cards, but someone who has become a naturalized US citizen can lose that naturalization legally through a process, through federal law, if they engaged in conduct that was fraudulent in becoming a citizen or becoming a permanent resident with a green card, or they are now engaging in acts that are contrary to societal norms. This type of criminality that we've been seeing, violating the constitutional rights of students at Columbia, that's certainly something that can disqualify a green card holder from remaining a green card holder. And when you add to that connections or possible connections to Hamas, serving as a mouthpiece, as a propaganda agent for Hamas, that is also disqualifying. So absolutely, people can have their green cards removed. They can have their citizenship stripped away from them if they engage in this type of criminal activity.
And I think that's a point that a lot of people are a little bit overlooking right now. But let's look at the broader picture here, right? On the one hand, the Trump administration now starting to deport these students. On the other hand, we also saw them just canceling around $400 million in federal aid to Columbia. They're also looking into other universities right now. What is the broader impact here on these universities? How is this going to change how universities operate? Because foreign students are a very big source of income for these schools.
Well, foreign students are a big source of income. So are donations, or so are contributions from foreign countries like Qatar, who contribute billions of dollars to these universities without transparency, I might add. So we don't really know what that money is funding. Ultimately, the universities, a lot of these universities have sizable endowments. But at issue, the core issue here is money speaks. The power of the purse is very important as a tool to regulate conduct. And we have seen a complete and abject failure by many universities, starting with Columbia, to adequately address Jew hatred in the 17 months since October 7. Since we're not seeing movement, since we're not seeing action to stop these violent protests, then the government has stepped in to impose consequences on the universities. All of this could have been avoided a year and a half ago if the universities, including Columbia, had had strong leadership to stop the escalation of protests back then. But they didn't. So here's where we are today. Students behaving in a lawless manner and the federal government stepping in to cut money and to deport illegal immigrants who are now illegal status if they're committing these acts.
And Gerard, before we go, I want to get your take on another thing that Rubio said today. He said that the State Department canceled 83% of USAID contracts. Those reportedly cost tens of billions of dollars. Where does that money go now?
Well, that money should be returned to the Treasury, so that money would be available on the budget sheets of the United States. But all of this is, we have to point out that a lot of these are still subject to lawsuits. They may still be compelled, the Trump administration may still be compelled to pay out some of that money. So the amount of money that's been saved from these contracts has yet to be determined. So it's a wait and see game to see what the courts do, especially the U.S. Supreme Court. Any money that's returned to the Treasury can be used for paying down the debt or for putting against expenses in the next budget.
A wait and see game indeed. Gerard Filitti, thanks for joining us as always.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
When we come back, Mayor Adams announces removal of over 1,000 illegal firearms from New York City streets since the beginning of 2025. The city saw a record low number of shootings in January and February. And there are new details in the Menendez brothers case. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman weighs in. Find out why he supports resentencing but remains opposed to a new trial after the break.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
Bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Welcome back to Newsroom. The Trump administration rolled out a new app today. It'll allow illegal immigrants in the U.S. to, quote, self-deport. That's rather than facing possible arrest and detention. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection app is known as CBP Home. Now, it will offer an option for someone to signal their intent to depart. The Homeland Security Secretary said the app gives illegal immigrants the option to leave now, quote, so they may still have the opportunity to return legally in the future and live the American dream. CBP Home replaces an app known as CBP One, which was launched under the Biden administration. During the Biden era, the app included a feature that allowed some 1 million migrants in Mexico to schedule an appointment before they request entry at a legal border crossing. Trump shut down CBP One just hours after taking office. A Trump administration regulation is set to take effect around April 11th. It would require people lacking legal status to register with the federal government or face fines or even jail time. And keeping New York City safe, Big Apple Mayor Eric Adams announces the seizure of over 1,000 illegal guns here in the city. NTD's Chris Beards joins us now live from Brooklyn, New York. Chris, good to see you. How many guns has Adams seized since taking office?
Fiona, good to see you as well. Adams has seized over 20,000 guns, illegal guns, since taking office. He says that's 3,000 more guns than the 3 years prior to him taking office. And he also says that this has led to the 42% drop in shootings since taking office and a 22% drop in homicides. He says that every single gun removed from the streets is a potential life saved. Here is Adams at a press conference where he made the announcement today.
We have drove year-to-date shootings down to a record low in our city's history, saving countless lives and keeping New York City safe. We are the safest big city in America. And I remember at the beginning of my time as mayor, sitting in the hospital room with a mother and an 11-month-old baby, that was shot in the head. And the mother was so strong and proud and really energized us to know that we had a mission in front of us, and we put plans in place to address this issue. And we know that we can bring down violence because we have done it over and over again.
NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch was also at this press conference announcing that Brooklyn is seeing the lowest level of shootings of crime in recorded history. So pretty significant there. She also said that in this year, 40 ghost guns have been seized in New York City. Now, you've probably heard about these before. These are weapons that that are not traceable by police or law enforcement because they're oftentimes 3D printed at people's homes even, and they don't have a code that's part of the U.S. gun database. She mentioned that they're also seeing guns with rapid-fire modifications, which basically turn single-fire weapons into deadly machine guns. She detailed an arrest of 8 gang members in January right here in Brooklyn, saying that all of these gang members were part of a gang, and she took that moment to note that some New York City council members actually want to get rid of the New York City gang database. Also at this press conference was an activist named Jackie Rowe Adams. She lost 2 of her sons to gun-related street violence a few decades ago. She is a strong supporter of Adams and his efforts to remove illegal guns from the streets of New York City. She says that no parent should ever have to suffer what she has suffered, losing not 1 but 2 sons. Any number of children lost is just far too many, of course. Mayor Adams mentioned the issue of recidivism also in this press conference. That's when people get arrested, go to jail, get back out, arrested again, go back to jail, and sometimes multiple times over. He's saying that every single gun that you saw him with at the table surrounding him during that press conference probably was related to somebody with a recidivist history. Fiona, back to you.
Chris Beers, great reporting. Thank you. Moving on now, Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman gave an update this morning on the high-profile Menendez brothers murder case. The update covered 3 elements: the habeas petition filed by the Menendez brothers, their clemency plea to the California governor, and their resentencing request.
One of the key hallmarks of resentencing is, do the defendants pose an unreasonable risk of danger to the community? One way to decide if they pose that risk is to understand if they have been rehabilitated.
Russian threat. Yet less than a year ago, Ursula von der Leyen claimed Russia was using chipsets from washing machines for its army. And now, suddenly, this army wants to conquer the world, or at least Europe. It seems narratives are being pushed on us. Those who support the war are portrayed as good, while those who seek peace agreements, like Trump, are seen as villains. This is a total inversion of values to me.
Some protesters worry EU leaders will send soldiers to Ukraine.
When I look at this rationally, I just can't believe it. Sending our young people? It's not possible. I have children. I have a son who could be sent over there. I don't want that to happen.
If we were really sending troops to maintain peace, prevent Ukraine from rearming, and avoid an escalation of the conflict, that could be something worth discussing. The problem is that these troops would be under the command of European leaders who seem solely focused on war.
President Macron will hold a meeting in Paris on Thursday with army chiefs from European countries willing to send troops to Ukraine after any potential peace deal with Russia. He also said France needs to be ready if the United States is no longer by its side. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Moscow has ordered 2 British diplomats to leave Russia, accusing them of spying. The pair are alleged to have engaged in intelligence activity under the cover of the embassy, a claim that the UK dismissed as baseless. This is the latest in a chain of diplomats from both countries being expelled from their missions. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson reports.
Russia's foreign ministry on Monday said it had summoned a representative of the British embassy in Moscow. State news agency TASS reported 2 British diplomats were ordered to leave the country. The 2 are accused of spying and have 2 weeks to leave. Britain's Foreign Office rejected the allegations against its diplomats as malicious and baseless. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov was asked if Russia needed to tighten inspections on foreign diplomats.
In this case, our special service is doing its job, ensuring the security of the Russian Federation, and everything that is needed is being done.
TASS cited Russia's Federal Security Service, or FSB, as saying that both individuals had deliberately declared false information about themselves when entering Russia, and that the FSB had uncovered what it called signs of intelligence and sabotage work by both, which threatened Russia's national security. It is the latest in a series of tit-for-tat expulsions involving the UK's embassy in Moscow and the Russian mission in London. In February, the British Foreign Office stripped a Russian diplomat of their accreditation. That move was in response to Russia's decision in November to expel a British diplomat from Russia on suspicion of spying. The expulsions also come days after 3 Bulgarians were found guilty in a London court of being part of a Russian spy unit. described as one of the largest and most complex Russian spy operations to be uncovered on UK soil, which sought to carry out surveillance on a US military base and other individuals targeted by Moscow. And Moscow has been angered by Britain's continued military support for Ukraine. The British government said the latest expulsions were what they have come to expect from President Putin. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our first story, Elon Musk says platform X was hit with a massive cyber attack and it was done with a lot of resources. He says it indicates a country or a coordinated group or both were behind it. And taking the bank to the courthouse, the Trump organization is suing Capital One over closing hundreds of its accounts. China's economy is struggling to make gains. New data shows signs of weakening as its deflation problem is getting worse. And someone is releasing a book about the back office happenings of Mark Zuckerberg's company Meta. Information from an SEC filing suggests Facebook had once planned to share user data with China. Thousands of accounts promoting a hit piece on Shen Yun performing arts have been suspended on X. NTD breaks down the Epoch Times expose of accounts pushing Chinese Communist Party propaganda.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon. Secretary of State Marco Rubio provided an update today on USAID. Rubio wrote on X that the 6-week review process has concluded and that 83% of its programs will be canceled. The Secretary of State said the 5,200 contracts canceled spent tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve America's core national interests. Rubio says in some cases they harmed U.S. interests. The remaining approximately 1,000 programs will be now administered under the State Department. Rubio thanked DOJ and hardworking staff for achieving what he called overdue and historic reform. DOJ member Elon Musk commented on Rubio's post, writing, "Tough but necessary. Good working with you." Federal immigration authorities have arrested a pro-Palestinian activist. Mohammed Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student, played a prominent role in student protests against Israel. The Trump administration has pledged to detain and deport student activists who support terrorist groups. ICE agents took Khalil into custody Saturday night. Khalil's arrest marks the first publicly known deportation effort under Trump's promised crackdown on students who joined last spring's nationwide pro-Palestinian protests. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated on X yesterday that the administration will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America. Khalil was under investigation by Columbia University. He's accused of organizing an event where participants glorified Hamas. Moments ago, President Trump posted on Truth Social that this won't be the last case. Trump said this is the first arrest of many to come. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it. Trump said, quote, many are not students, and there are paid agitators. The Trump administration rolled out a new app today. It will allow illegal immigrants in the U.S. to, quote, self-deport rather than face possible arrest and detention. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection app is known as CBP Home. It will offer an option for someone to signal their intent to depart. The Homeland Security Secretary said the app gives illegal immigrants the option to leave now, so they may still have the opportunity to return legally in the future and live the American dream. CBP Home replaces an app known as CBP One that was launched under Biden. The Biden-era app included a feature that allowed some 1 million migrants in Mexico to schedule an appointment before they request entry at a legal border crossing. Trump shut down CBP One hours after taking office. A Trump administration regulation is set to take effect April 11th. It would require people lacking legal status to register with the federal government or face fines or jail time. Lawmakers debate the merits of a stopgap bill to avoid a government shutdown. Our Washington correspondent has the latest on the government funding battle on Capitol Hill.
We're not seeing a clean CR. We're going to see a CR where you see defense spending augmented, but also allowing for new contracts and new starts. But we can't do a year-long clean CR and say that we're deterring China and Russia. It would be a lie.
The Republican proposal to avert a government shutdown increases defense spending by $6 billion and cuts down $13 billion on non-defense spending.
Let me be clear. This is a continuing resolution, which means that we're basically extending the funding that everyone voted for back in December. So there's no reason why the Democrats should not join us and make this bipartisan. There's no additional partisan policy that has been put in this bill. As a matter of fact, there's only positive increases in spending.
House Republican leadership argues that their proposal contains no poison pills, but at least one House Republican lawmaker, Congressman Thomas Massie, has already signaled he will not support a continuing resolution, while House Democratic leadership has accused Republicans of cutting them out of the process altogether.
And what we've seen with Speaker Johnson is that he walked away from the bipartisan talks. We have talks ongoing right now. And what I support is an effort that's the same thing that the Republican chair of appropriations, Cole, supports, which he says that a bipartisan deal would be better than a CR.
Leader Hakeem Jeffries is very clear that we cannot support a continued resolution when Republicans who control the House and the Senate have not made any effort to negotiate with us on what the CR would look like.
Republicans can only afford to lose 2 votes on the House floor, and it remains to be seen if any Democrats break party lines and join Republicans to vote for the continuing resolution.
A continuing resolution that the Republican majority is proposing doesn't do anything to address the concerns I'm hearing from my constituents here in Oregon. It seems to double down on the dangerous cuts, including to Medicaid, does nothing to protect Medicare and Social Security.
It's important to note that the Senate is expected to vote Monday afternoon on the confirmation of Lori Chavez DeRemer to become the next Labor Secretary. She's expected to be confirmed on a party line vote. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
The Trump administration addressed multiple topics yesterday, from the short-term impact of tariffs on the economy to efforts aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. NTD's Daniel Monahan has key takeaways.
President Trump discussed tariffs and their impact in an interview with a Fox News host that aired Sunday. Trump said his tariff plan would likely impact the economy for a transition period, but that it would ultimately benefit the country.
Hey, look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
Trump says a short-term outlook won't cut it. You have to do what's right.
What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future.
The president says something special is brewing in America.
I think the country has got a big light over it right now, and I've been told this by even other foreign leaders.
Trump predicts that because of his policies, interest rates and energy prices will come down, easing the burden on consumers and businesses.
It's going to make our country rich again. We have many companies, as you know, auto companies are opening up plants now. We've had 4 or 5 announced already, but many more are coming.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says the threat of tariffs has yielded results with Mexico and Canada. Noem says the drug data on fentanyl is improving, but the U.S. is hoping for even better partnerships, including access to their criminal background system and technology investments. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said Sunday that Trump is likely to maintain his tariff pressure on Mexico, Canada, and China until, quote, fentanyl ends. President Trump Sunday discussed a possible government shutdown if the House can't muster enough votes to pass a temporary funding bill.
It probably won't. I think the CR is going to get passed. We'll see, but it could happen. You never know.
The president says he remains optimistic the measure will get approved. Trump on Saturday signaled his support for the continuing resolution and urged his fellow Republicans to vote in favor of it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio plans to visit Saudi Arabia this week. He will meet with Ukrainian officials for negotiations to end the Russia-Ukraine war.
We're looking at a lot of things. We have big meetings coming up, as you know, in Saudi Arabia. That's going to include Russia. It'll be Ukraine. We'll see if we can get something done. Like to get something done.
Trump said he expects positive outcomes from the talks.
A lot of people died this week, as you know, in Ukraine. Not only Ukrainians, but Russians. So I think everybody wants to see it get done. We're going to make a lot of progress, I believe, this week.
The president also addressed joint military exercises involving Russia, China, and Iran, downplaying concerns.
Because we're stronger than all of them. We have more power than all of them.
With key negotiations ahead, the administration says it aims to secure economic stability and international peace. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Coming up after the break, someone wrote a book about the inner workings at Facebook. It goes into detail on how Facebook tried to gain access to China by censoring users. But Meta is defending their actions from a decade ago. Don't go away for that and more.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by US News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
In today's Business Matters, the Trump Organization is suing Capital One for terminating hundreds of accounts. The organization and the president's son, Eric Trump, say the Virginia-based bank failed to provide any advance notice. According to the lawsuit, Capital One informed the Trump Organization in March 2021 that their accounts would be closed in June that same year. The plaintiffs say they believe Capital One was harboring, quote, unsubstantiated woke beliefs that it needed to distance itself from President Trump and his conservative political views. Those stances allegedly motivated the bank to abruptly close the organization's accounts. A Capital One spokesperson told the Epoch Times, quote, Capital One has not and does not close customer accounts for political reasons. Capital One has a market capitalization of around $66 billion. And it's the opposite of You're Fired for The Apprentice. The popular reality show has been hired onto Amazon's streaming service. The first season of the hit show is now available to watch on Prime Video. President Trump hosted all but one season. He left to kick off his first presidential campaign. The Apprentice is widely recognized as helping boost Trump into the national spotlight. In a statement, President Trump said he's looking forward to watching the show. He said, it was such a great memory and a learning experience for all of us. Amazon said it will exclusively stream the first 7 seasons, and season 2 and on will be rolled out weekly. Outages on X, the social media platform, went down multiple times today. Owner Elon Musk is blaming this on a massive cyber attack. Musk said the company is attacked every day, but this one was done with a lot of resources. He said he expects it will either be a large coordinated group and or a country involved. News outlets following Down Detector found thousands of outages reported this morning. Users submitted data showing earlier in the day there were as many as 40,000 impacted. And thieves have caught on to America's coffee craze, stealing truckloads as prices for beans increased to all-time highs. A sales coordinator for Hartley Transportation says there were dozens of thefts last year. He said in the past it would only happen rarely. Theft of coffee have also been reported in producing countries like Brazil and Vietnam. This is happening usually at farms where beans are temporarily stored after the harvest. Those sites are more vulnerable because they're isolated. The issue was discussed during the U.S. National Coffee Association's annual conference. Celine Dion is warning her fans to beware of fake AI-generated songs appearing online imitating her. She posted on Instagram about it over the weekend. The star wrote, quote, unsanctioned AI-generated music purporting to contain Celine Dion's musical performances, name and likeness is currently circulating online. The post went on to say the recordings are not fake, are fake rather, but not approved and not songs from Dion's official discography. Dion didn't name any particular recordings, but the use of AI is an increasing source of debate in the music industry. Last April, more than 200 artists, including Billie Eilish, Ja Rule, and Katy Perry, signed an open letter speaking out against AI-related threats in the music industry. And strapping smartphones to subways, that's a pilot program that MTA and Google tried and called out Track Inspect. Google Pixel smartphones were retrofitted to certain subway cars to collect sounds and other data that was sent to Google's cloud. The data was then analyzed for patterns that could signal track defects before they become a problem. The MTA says service disruptions are an ongoing problem, with more than 42,000 reported in December alone. Last year, this was a proof of concept partnership, but it's unclear how much it would cost for the MTA to implement. It already needs billions to complete existing projects. And China is posing new retaliatory tariffs on certain U.S. agricultural goods today. President Trump says his trade policies will make the U.S. richer in the end. Here's the latest on escalating trade tensions.
In trade, as in hockey, Canada will win.
Some American trade partners are cracking down on U.S. exports. Starting today, American farmers face new retaliatory tariffs on many products they send to China. The measures include an extra 15% duty on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, and a 10% one on items such as beef and soybeans. Some American farmers say they're worried escalating trade tensions could make it harder to sell their products abroad.
Everything we produce far exceeds what the domestic market could handle.
Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's newly elected successor is standing by Canada's retaliation against the U.S.
And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
President Donald Trump is doubling down. He says some tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods scheduled for April 2nd, quote, could go up. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says duties on steel and aluminum imports are set to start Wednesday. Most mainstream economists say tariffs can be inflationary. Lutnick acknowledges some prices might rise in the U.S., but Trump says any pain would be short term.
Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America.
So the name may be Bond, James Bond, but the owner is now Amazon MGM Studios. Actor Pierce Brosnan, who famously played the British spy, says he laments the franchise takeover. For the past 3 decades, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli oversaw the Bond films. The half-siblings will remain co-owners but have handed over creative control to Amazon. Brosnan, the GoldenEye star, said he hopes Amazon will treat the franchise with respect and dignity. He also hopes the American company doesn't pick an American as the next Bond. Instead, he hopes the next 007 will be British. Trump said his administration was in touch with 4 different groups about the sale of TikTok. Here's a closer look.
Donald Trump says a deal to sell TikTok could be close. Speaking to journalists on Air Force One on Sunday, he said there was a lot of interest.
So do you think there's going to be a deal on TikTok soon?
There could be. We're dealing with 4 different groups, and a lot of people want it, and it's up to me. So there could be.
TikTok owner ByteDance had faced a January deadline to sell the app or shut down in the US. The previous US administration had viewed the Chinese app as a national security risk, as did Trump in his first term. But he has since revised his position and, on returning to office, signed an executive order delaying the ban by 75 days. Trump subsequently floated the idea of selling it to parties including Elon Musk, his ally in government cost-cutting efforts. He has also suggested that the US should get a stake in the app, which analysts value at up to $50 billion. Speaking last week, Trump said the 75-day deadline could be extended if more time is needed to do a deal.
I think, look, we have a lot of interest in TikTok, and China is going to play a role, and so hopefully China will approve of the deal, but they're going to play a role. But we have a lot of interest in TikTok.
On Monday, the identity of the 4 interested groups mentioned by Trump wasn't clear. Among those to recently express an interest is former Los Angeles Dodgers owner Frank McCourt. There was no immediate comment on Trump's claims from TikTok or ByteDance.
Spanish fashion retailer Mango is strutting its stuff overseas. The company reported a rise in sales last year to more than $3.6 billion. The retailer benefited from an international expansion with its focus on the U.S., Mango reported that nearly 80% of its total sales came from its international stores. The retailer has ongoing plans to expand shops in the U.S., which is one of its top 5 markets. Mango returned to the U.S. in May 2022 to open its flagship store in New York. This came after the company had made 2 previous attempts to break into the North American market. Deflation pressure is deepening in China. The economy continues to be weighed down by weak consumer spending, uncertain employment, and a prolonged property sector downturn. Now its consumer prices have plunged to their lowest in more than a year. The Consumer Price Index, a benchmark for measuring inflation, dipped 0.7% last month from the previous year. The drop is partially because the Lunar New Year holiday, which boosts spending, fell in January this year. The country's core CPI, which excludes volatile prices like food and fuel, also declined. The economy is also being squeezed internationally as the U.S. escalates a trade war on China, which has long relied on exports to drive growth. Americans again changed their clocks yesterday to observe daylight saving time. Earlier, I spoke to Jacob Berg, reporter for the Epoch Times, on the debate of making it permanent and the economic impact. Take a look. So what are the arguments in favor of keeping standard time year-round?
So one of the biggest reasons a lot of people support standard time, which is the time we experience between November and March before we change our clocks forward again, is mainly the late darkness in the early morning. If you extend daylight savings time into the winter, as they did in the early 70s, that we'll talk about in a second here, it leads to some areas in the country experiencing darkness well into 8:30 in the morning. And so a lot of people who do not want to see daylight savings time go year round will cite that as a reason. And then obviously the people on the other side of the fence will say, well, we don't want to have sunset at like 5, 6 p.m. certain days of the year. And so it's a lot of debate over, do we want darkness in the morning? Do we want it at night? And, going in back and forth between those two positions, essentially.
Can you talk to us about some specific businesses who differ in their views on daylight savings time?
Yeah, sure. So the golf industry is a really good example of businesses that support daylight savings time and have lobbied for it to be extended, as they did in 2005, because it went from being October, it started in October, then went to November. Anyway, for golfers, it means more time on the course at night. It means being able to play into dusk in those hours. The candy industry lobbied for the extension of daylight savings time back prior to 2005 because they wanted an extra hour. They wanted the extra time to extend into Halloween so kids could have more time to go out and get candy. But the airline industry is an example of one that opposes and is against daylight savings time because, quite frankly, for them, it's difficult navigating time changes. Not nationwide, that's a little easier, but internationally, when you're going from one time zone to another, especially from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, when you change those times around, it makes the time differences from one destination to another pretty drastic. It leads to pilots having fatigue, and it's a big headache for the airlines. It's for sure.
Are there any economic impacts with the clock changes?
Yeah, so the original reason they decided to make daylight savings a thing in the early 1900s was during the 2 world wars. They wanted to conserve energy, and they saw it as a way to conserve burning fuel. You'd have more light in the evening and less need for electricity and things like that. And so when they changed it in the 70s, there was some reports that came out, and they determined that there is less energy consumption, but it impacts different people differently. Farmers, for instance, a lot of people assumed that we went to daylight savings time to help farmers, but actually back when we first started doing it, a lot of farmers would say, well, we just lost an hour of daylight in the morning for trying to get our goods to market, which was an immediate economic impact for a lot of farmers. So while, there's a lot of positives for it. Less energy use. There's some industries that it just continues to be a headache for them.
All right, Jacob, thanks for your time. That's it for today.
Thank you.
CVS wants to grow itself by shrinking its floor plan. It's opening roughly a dozen stores this year that have only a pharmacy and are about half the size of the normal layout. They won't be including the part of the store that usually sells snacks, makeup, cards, and other things. The smallest stores are one part of CVS's plans for a turnaround, which have also included more than 1,000 store closures and thousands of layoffs. The chain is trying to adjust to a changing industry. Drugstore chains with large retail sections have struggled to keep up with companies like Amazon and Target. They've also had issues with theft, which has chipped away at profitability. Fewer people are buying homes. The National Association of Realtors says pending home sales dropped 4.6% in January. That's an all-time low. But experts say there are programs out there to make buying more affordable. Take a look.
The American dream of owning a home has become much more challenging. Experts say high prices and high interest rates have led to a housing affordability crisis.
That goal is seemingly so far away from many people.
Bankrate recently conducted a survey among aspiring homeowners and found 81% said a down payment and closing costs are an obstacle to owning a home.
These are tough times for people.
According to the most recent data from the National Association of Realtors, the median existing home sale price in January was $396,900. Many loan companies require a 20% down payment for a mortgage, which means a buyer would need to put down about $80,000 for a home that price. But there are other options for buyers.
There are programs out there where people can get a 10% down payment, even a 3% down payment.
One option is a Federal Housing Administration loan, known as an FHA loan. This government program helps low to moderate income families buy a home with as little as 3.5% down, depending on your credit score. The Department of Veterans Affairs also has programs to help veterans and their families buy a home. But Hamrick cautions that putting less down means higher monthly costs.
You're financing the rest of the purchase, so that means that your commitment for the financing is a bigger sum of money.
Hamrick also says potential homebuyers need to budget for monthly insurance costs, taxes, and home repairs.
Now, it looks like more and more people are worried about the national economy. According to the latest Consumer Expectations Survey from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, many Americans are losing confidence in the U.S. job market. They also said inflation is no longer easing and believe they will have greater economic problems a year from now. Researchers added the number of consumers who have said they have an increased chance of not being able to make minimum debt payments rose to levels not seen since April 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The findings are based on responses from a rotating panel of 1,300 people. Car maker Ford plans to give billions of dollars to its struggling German operations as it tries to revive its European business. Here's more.
Ford will inject up to $4.76 billion into its struggling German operations. Monday's announcement comes as the US carmaker tries to revive its European business. Ford said recapitalizing its German operations will help support business transformation in Europe. It also believes the move will help it to compete with a fresh product portfolio. The auto giant further said it needs to simplify its governance, lower costs and drive efficiencies to build a sustainable business in Europe. The new funding commitment includes a capital injection to address overborrowing at its Ford Werke German arm and provides funding for a multi-year business plan. Ford also called on European policymakers to establish a clear agenda to promote electric vehicles, and it wants them to bring emissions targets in line with consumer demand. Europe's car industry has been forced into plant closures as competition from China has hurt demand. The sector is also bracing for US tariffs. Ford is cutting thousands of jobs in Europe, many of them in Germany, where domestic giant Volkswagen has also struggled and moved to close factories. Both companies have drawn worker protests in response.
The least visited U.S. national parks are often overlooked due to their remoteness, limited infrastructure, and challenging transportation options, but they offer remote and rugged beauty. Alaska alone is home to 5 of them, all featuring vast wilderness and wildlife. Isle Royale in Michigan is an isolated archipelago. Florida's Dry Tortugas has a historic fort. Washington's North Cascades has glaciers, while American Samoa features coral reefs, and Minnesota's Voyageurs is perfect for water exploration. And there are more, and despite fewer visitors, these parks offer unique, untamed beauty and adventure. A former Meta employee is releasing a book claiming to be an inside look at the workings of the company formerly known as Facebook. She shared an SEC filing with the Washington Post alleging that Facebook went to great lengths to win the approval of the Chinese Communist Party in order to gain a foothold in the Chinese market, claiming the company was willing to censor content, share user data, and more. NTD Shar Marshall has more details.
A former executive at Facebook's parent company Meta Platforms has accused the company and CEO Mark Zuckerberg of a major effort to grow Facebook's presence in China. She alleges that the company was willing to censor user content and offer the regime access to user data in an attempt to curry favor with the Chinese Communist Party. That's just a part of a 78-page whistleblower complaint by Sarah Wynne Williams, Meta's former global policy director for China. She filed the complaint with the SEC in April and shared it with the Washington Post. The Post reports that according to Wynne Williams, Facebook developed a China-specific censorship system in 2015 and proposed installing a chief editor to manage and potentially shut down the content during periods of social unrest. The Post reports that Wynne Williams also claims that Facebook was prepared to give the Chinese Communist Party oversight of all Facebook content in China and store user data locally, making it more accessible to surveillance by the Chinese regime. Meta is defending itself publicly. Andy Stone, communications director at Meta, says that the Washington Post failed to publish Meta's response in its entirety. It reads in full, "This is all pushed by an employee terminated 8 years ago for poor performance. We do not operate our services in China today. It is no secret we were once interested in doing so as part of Facebook's effort to connect the world. This was widely reported beginning a decade ago. We ultimately opted not to go through with the ideas we'd explored, which Mark Zuckerberg announced in 2019. Wynne Williams is releasing a book, Careless People, A Cautionary Tale of Power, Greed, and Lost Idealism, on Tuesday. The book's overview, published on the Barnes & Noble website, says the book gives you a front-row seat to Facebook and is an eye-opening memoir that reveals what really goes on among the global elite. The book alleges that the plan to develop a version of Facebook specifically for China was called Project Aldrin, after astronaut Buzz Aldrin, the first to land a manned spacecraft on the moon. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And U.S. stocks plunged today as relentless tariff wrangling and mounting anxieties from a possible federal government shutdown gave rise to fears that the U.S. economy could be careening into recession. The previous week's steep sell-off resumed, and this is gathering momentum as the session progressed, with all 3 major U.S. indexes suffering sharp declines. And the tech-loaded index also dipped more than 10% below its record closing high. And this is confirming that it entered a correction when it touched that high on December 19th. So the bellwether S&P 500 closed below its 200-day moving average. And this is a closely watched support level for the index. And it fell below that for the first time since November 2023. Okay, just a quick update on markets, and that's it for today on Business Matters. Coming up after the break, bots, trolls, and operatives barred from X, the social media company cleaning up their airwaves after thousands of fake accounts reposted a hit piece on Shen Yun performing arts. We have a data analysis that gives us a closer look after the break.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return. Shen Yun.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented My Pillow. My Pillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got My Pillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King My Pillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic My Pillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
X to the rescue. The social media company has taken down fake accounts, boosting a hit piece against the dance company Shen Yun. Our data reporter Kevin Hogan has more on this. Now, Kevin, why were these accounts doing this, and how many are gone now?
These are thousands of fake accounts that were removed by X because they were inactive and they were just doing things just to promote a CCP, Chinese Communist Party propaganda line, and that was that New York Times hit piece on the performing arts company Shen Yun. Again, these are bots, so it could just be like AI maybe, or they're operatives, even part of the PLA, the Chinese People's Liberation Army, just getting in there and boosting these things to advance their own interests, or even just trolls online, all regurgitating this. Look at, these are the accounts. You see these pictures, they almost look like bots. They don't even have real faces. A lot of them have these names that are just some word with a couple numbers afterwards. So just generic, arbitrary names. Again, a lot of them don't have any followers either. So they're just made for one purpose and one purpose alone, just to push this propaganda. Because again, the New York Times was putting out several hit pieces, and that's 10 hit pieces on Shen Yun, this dance company. A lot of them are Falun Gong practitioners. It's a spiritual movement that's persecuted in China, and they shed light on the horrible human rights abuses that the CCP is committing against these people. So of course the Chinese Communist Party does not want anyone to go see that show. But I mean, that's in a short time frame, 10 attack pieces in just 8 months. So at this rate, we're going to look further into the Epoch Times expose into this to try to understand what exactly is going on. I mean, one Chinese language hit piece got 37,000 shares, over 37,000 shares. Again, that's bots doing this, these CCP operatives getting in there. The problem is that that makes the post go viral. It even pushes it to the top of these aggregators. They see, wow, it got that many shares, must be an important story. So it goes to the top of the charts, and people pick up on that when normally they wouldn't, because it's not actually really that popular, right? So we're going to break down the numbers even further. This is the traction that the Chinese language of the New York Times normally gets. So for this hit piece on Facebook, they got a couple hundred comments, right? But on average, all of their engagements, whether it's likes, shares, and stuff, that only amounts to about 60 for one of their posts. But look, the likes and share, the likes, just bumps that up to almost 2,000 on Facebook alone. Now the shares, there's the big story. On X, you see that 37,000 shares, right? That dwarfs the average completely. You almost can't even see it anymore at this scale. So that is just more evidence that this post is just being artificially propped up by all these bots and trolls and other types of accounts that are made just to further that CCP propaganda line, right? And here's more evidence. Look, there are unusually low follower counts among these people, these bots or other operatives that are spreading these hit pieces. So for example, just take a normal sharing. Most of the time, it's, you have about 90% of the people who share an article have about 50 or more followers. Think, if you just made an account, you might get a couple followers, you're a real person, you're sharing something, and then only about 10% have less than 50 followers. But for the hit pieces, it's the exact opposite. Look at this. You have 80%, a huge portion of them, don't have any followers at all. And then another 14% with 1 to 50 followers. So a bulk of, almost 90%, over 90%, you're looking at, just people who are not real people, or they're in there for a deceptive purpose, just try to artificially inflate these numbers. Again, this is an Epoch Times review, their analysis of data provided by BuzzSumo. They do analytics for social media sites. So furthermore, the X just got in there and said, no, we're going to shut these down after the Epoch Times informed them. And so these accounts with 1 or 0 followers, they shut down most of them. That's 96% of them. And then the Epoch Times found, they did a sample of about 100 of these accounts that actually did have some amount of followers, right? More than just 1 or 0. And they told the X about it, and X said, okay, well, they went in and they suspended 75% of those other accounts that do have followers. So they were even able to get in there and work on tracking down these accounts that are just up to no good, that have no real business being on X in the first place, right? So even the ones that do have followers, we're talking 10,000 followers or more, these accounts that shared that main hit piece in the Chinese language, half of them show inauthentic activity. So this could just be a repurposed account. The CCP operatives just go in, they say, oh, this was a business account of some form, had some followers, great. We'll convert it over to our propaganda machine and have them start retweeting or reposting these hit pieces so that it can gain more traction at the same time. So again, you have to think that traction that could gain more visibility if a post is reposted so many times, causing people to come across something that basically has no merit to it whatsoever. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Next, in Washington, D.C., crews have begun removing the large yellow letters spelling Black Lives Matter painted on the street, 1 block from the White House. The work is expected to take about 6 weeks. Some gathered to witness the moment, while others took a piece of the pavement with them. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser had ordered the painting in June 2020 following nationwide protests surrounding the death of George Floyd. At the same time, the intersection was renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza. The words will be replaced with city-sponsored murals. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman gave an update this morning on the high-profile Menendez brothers murder case. The update covered 3 elements: the habeas petition filed by the Menendez brothers, their clemency plea to the California governor, and their resentencing request.
LA District Attorney Nathan Hochman announced at a press conference Monday that he wants to withdraw the previous DA's motion for a resentencing hearing of Eric and Lyle Menendez. He says the brothers haven't fully admitted their motive or shown enough self-reflection.
The update also covered Hochman's 3 parallel tracks for the case: the habeas petition filed by Lyle and Eric Menendez, their clemency plea to California Governor Gavin Newsom, and their resentencing request.
One of the key hallmarks of resentencing is, do the defendants pose an unreasonable risk of danger to the community? One way to decide if they pose that risk is to understand if they have been rehabilitated. And one way to understand if they've been rehabilitated is, have they accepted and exhibited full insight into the crimes that they have committed and accepted complete responsibility for their criminal actions.
Hochman is standing firm on the Menendez brothers' case. Hochman has already asked the courts to deny the brothers' habeas petition, but Governor Gavin Newsom has directed the California Board of Parole hearings to review whether the brothers pose a risk to public safety if released. Hochman opposes a new trial but supports a resentencing hearing as long as it's on his terms. He's requesting that a resentencing motion filed by the previous district attorney, George Gascon, be withdrawn before the case moves forward. Hochman also says the brothers have told 20 different lies, admitting to 4 of them while 16 remain unacknowledged.
Eric and Lyle lied on the 911 call about just discovering their parents' bodies. The second lie that they've admitted to is that they lied to the police, family, and friends and the media about their involvement in the murders.
Around 24 relatives, including Joan Anderson Vandermolen, 92, the mother of one of the murder victims, have come out in support of the brothers' release.
If they go ahead and finally come clean with the court, with the public, with the DA's office, with their own family members, and acknowledge all these lies, and then can be said to have fully and completely accepted responsibility for their actions, in the future, the court can weigh these new insights into making a determination as to whether they now qualify for rehabilitation and resentencing.
A resentencing hearing is set for March 20th and 21st for the brothers, who are serving life without the possibility of parole. Reporting from the city of Almani, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Police in Florida have arrested a teenager who was allegedly planning a school shooting. Authorities say officers apprehended the teen after being tipped off to a video showing the teen with what appeared to be several firearms. Sanford police identified the suspect as Timothy A. Thomas, a student currently enrolled in Elevation High School. Thomas was located at his residence and taken into custody without incident. Police seized several airsoft replica guns that they called extremely realistic. The 17-year-old has been charged with intimidation and threatening to conduct a mass shooting or terrorism. Syria's interim government signed a deal today with the Kurdish-led authority that controls the country's northeast. The deal is a major breakthrough and would bring most of Syria under the control of the interim government. The deal includes a ceasefire and the merging of the main U.S.-backed force there into the Syrian military. It was signed by interim president Ahmad al-Shara and the commander of the U.S.-backed Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. Under the deal, all border crossings with Iraq and Turkey and airports and oil fields in the northeast will be controlled by the interim government, while Syria's Kurds will regain their constitutional rights, such as using their own language. The deal is to be implemented by the end of the year. Coming up after the break, a message that's soul-moving. That's what audience members had to say after watching Shen Yun performing arts in Stamford, Connecticut over the weekend. That and more when we return.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
At Mathis Home, we understand that your home is a reflection of you. And during our spring style event, we have fresh new looks that are waiting to make your home look and feel great at the lowest prices. And with all the latest styles in bloom, you'll find savings in every department. Whether it's a clean and modern sectional or a rustic and traditional dining table, we have it in stock with fast and free delivery. Come find the look that's right for you at our spring style event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
New York-based Shen Yun Performing Arts wrapped up its 3-day performance in Stamford, Connecticut over the weekend. Through classical Chinese dance and live orchestral music, it brought to life thousands of years of traditional Chinese culture. NTD has been a proud media sponsor of Shen Yun since 2006. Hear why audience members call the show inspiring and uplifting.
It's inspiring in many ways, in an artistic way, and in a musical way, and in a religious way. And that's everything in the show, and you couldn't have a better show.
This is the 5th time I'm seeing it, and this time I brought a group of 45 because I believe it's fabulous in the artwork.
I just thought it was terrific. The athleticism was terrific, and also I loved the spiritual aspect of it. To me, it was wonderful, very uplifting.
You don't even think of the live orchestra while you're full immersed, and then you think of it, and it's like everything is like so perfectly, seamlessly put together.
I was sitting right at the edge of the orchestra, and it's so inspirational to see and hear everything. And you know, as I say, the creativity and the message, you know, everything worked perfectly, beautifully.
Shen Yun's story-based dance draws on Chinese culture that in ancient times was believed to be divinely inspired. Audience members were deeply moved by the profound message of the performance.
Very, very touching, yes. And the love stories, like how the kids interact with each other. Oh, the funny story about the school story with the teacher. That was really, really cute. Very, very relatable.
It's very soul-moving. I mean, it's a spiritual show in many ways. It touches people. I came here with 3 friends, and everybody had something different that they experienced.
The message of kindness, unity, and to be grateful, the gratitude for this short life that we have. And I think that's really what was a big part of the message of this show, which I just actually loved.
This is like my 3rd time, and it gets more beautiful all the time, and it's eye candy, and it's very spiritual moving, and just to see the discipline of these young people is just, it's just mind-blowing.
Beautiful. You have to come. You have to come and see it because it's absolutely phenomenal, and it takes you away from the real world, and it transports you to something that makes you dream.
Shen Yun will be performing at the Lincoln Center in New York City starting March 26. NTD News, Stamford, Connecticut.
And thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.